Welcome back to Between Two Teachers. I'm Madeline Kronenberg.
And I'm Trustee Lara.
And this week we have a lot to share. There's been a lot that's been going on nationally, locally, and in the district. So I'll get right started with the national. And the most interesting thing that's happening nationally is this lawsuit against Betsy DeVos, our esteemed Secretary of Education, who was held in contempt for contempt of court over the student loan scandal because she really failed to recognize the importance of it. So it's not a big deal in terms of the amount of money she's got, but nonetheless she was fined $100,000, and it does show that her disrespect for the courts has been acknowledged nationally, and so that's a big piece of news out of Washington. In addition to the Washington news, as far as national issues, the biggest issue is the strike of the Chicago teachers. And the Chicago teachers have been on strike all last week. It's not resolved yet. It looks like it's coming closer and closer. There's now a website that I will put a link to called Tracker, and it tracks the teacher strikes throughout the United States. It's from Education Dive, and I thought that was so fascinating that there are that many strikes that now we can track them. It's like the fires that we have going on and tracking those.
Mm-hmm.
But this strike is about getting more support for students. I mean, what had typically the teachers were demonized when they would go on strike in the past because they thought, oh, you're just being greedy, as if we're overpaid to begin with, but you're just being greedy because it's always about money. Now, strikes have become about teaching the environment and what the children need. And so having a nurse in every school, we don't have anything close to that. Having more counselors, having smaller class sizes so that teachers have more time to spend with each child. These are the issues, and in addition certainly to salaries. But those issues are front and center in all of the strikes that are happening today. And so I think that's made a big difference. And the strike in Chicago is marching forward and has gotten a lot of national attention. In addition to the strike, the other national issue is the presidential candidates are out there with their plans. And the plan that came out this week is Elizabeth Warren's plan, and I'll link to that too, which is very much like the Bernie Sanders plan in many, many ways, particularly around its approach to privatization of education at charter schools. So she's firmly against them. She's changed. She certainly is somebody who's changed over time, but there are real differences in how the different candidates approach it and where they've landed today, and it's worth really taking a look at her plan. Then locally, or more locally, the other big issue I wanted to focus on before we get to the district itself is what's happened in Oakland. At the last Oakland board meeting, a group called Oakland Not for Sale, which is really made up of parents, parents of schools that are about to be closed. And in Oakland, which is a school district with 80 schools, 24 of them are about to be closed. And there are always many reasons for it. But one of the biggest reasons is that Oakland has the highest percentage of charter schools in the state of California and lost many millions of dollars every year because of the loss of students. This is a really painful thing for the community to go through. And it's my hope that the board and the community work together to rethink the closing of those schools and find ways to keep them open. Because the school is the hub of the neighborhood. And to take 24 neighborhood schools and abandon them is it's just a very terrible thing to do. And the story came out, and the story when you saw it was about the violence and the use of force by the police department. But really, that's not the story. The story here is the pain of the families, and then the decisions that the school board made and that the district made around how they were going to present this to the public. There really hasn't been any collaboration with them, and I think that they've got to find a way to do that and to get past needing to hide behind security. If you have to hide behind security and you have to organize your meeting that way, there's something very wrong with what's happening. And 24 out of 80 schools, that's an enormous number of schools.
Can you imagine?
It's very scary.
Yeah.
And then we get to West Contra Costa.
Yes. I have something to share. I received a request for the search of my personal electronic devices and or accounts related under the California Public Records Act. And it's specifically any communications I have with our charter school office. So clearly this came from the charter schools, the charter industry lawyers.
Well, and you don't know. This is the thing. At this point, you haven't, no one has
No,
sent
nobody
you a
told me-
copy of the request.
I don't know who it's coming from exactly.
Which isn't
who the
their
lawyers.
fault. It's just that
No. I don't know yet because I will find out. But I do know it's related to the charter people, and they want all of my emails. And so I just thought about it, and I know this has happened in the past too. It's a common thing when, you know, for one reason or another. And I just wanted to analyze it in terms of what the purpose of it is. And certainly they're not going to find anything wrong because I didn't do anything wrong. But it is a method of bullying. It is a method of intimidation. It is a method of pulling their weight around and saying, you know, we're the big guys here, and you're just a little, you know, we can boss you around and push you around and intimidate you, and to frighten me, I guess. But I just, you know, the other thing I thought about was how it's costing our lawyers who have to then respond to these requests. And the other thing that happens too is they do that, and then I think what they want to do, since we're going to be voting on several charter petitions soon, that they want to influence my vote by intimidating me, and then to possibly request for me to be recused from voting on these petitions. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? So I just want to make a statement now that I ran on this issue, that this is one of the things that I'm doing, is I am fighting for the non-privatization of our public school funds, and to make sure that our funds are safe from privatization, from the real estate developers and the real estate investors who are making money off of the charter. And that's really who is behind this request. So these are the big guys, the big guns that are after me, little old me, and I guess they must be afraid. And it's not that they're just afraid of me. They're afraid of this movement, because there is a big movement now, and especially among parents. There is a movement growing in Pinole to try to save their schools there because of making waves. And so they have making waves, but the community, this movement is a tsunami. And we are going to change this. We're not going to end up like Oakland. We're not going to allow the takeover of our board by pro-charter individuals so that we end up like that. And then our money goes to the privatization of our school district. So I'm in that fight, as are many people, and I'm not, as a board member, I'm not going to allow it. And so the idea of asking people to recuse themselves from voting, that's like asking all of the people that I represent, all of the people that voted for me, you are going to ignore their vote and their participation, because that's who I speak for. I ran on this issue. I'm going to vote according to that issue, and always. So I don't have a hidden agenda. I'm out there, out in front of what I'm fighting for. So I just think this is very interesting. I don't know if people realize that how this happens and how this is used as bullying and intimidation technique. And the other thing, little prop that I have here, I just wanted to show, I don't know if people commonly know this, but here's one of the charter school petitions. This, I have 2 more at home like this. So I just look at this and I think, this is like a business plan. This is not, well, probably business plans are not even this big. But again, I think it's just a way of intimidation. Like, it's just so overwhelming, you know. And the other thing too, I noticed it says public schools, and I just have a thing to say about that. These schools are not public schools. They are not public schools because they are not governed by publicly elected governing boards like our public schools are. They're just not. There's nobody on their boards elected. They have no elected people by the community or by their parents. So they're not public schools from my definition. And let me see, what else do I want to say about this? I think that's pretty much it. Did you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think that's you've really covered the whole thing. I mean, a FOIA request, the public is allowed to do a Freedom of Information Act request, and when that's done, it typically, historically in West Contra Costa, those requests were also made public because there's no reason for them not to be. You're not trying to do something that's not available to the public. So when this request is made, and it's made specifically about a certain set of communications, you can draw conclusions about that. Ms. Lara did not receive a copy of it, so we, to our knowledge right now, it's not, the actual request is not posted anywhere, but it should be. There's no reason for it not to be.
Yeah.
Right? And so let's just, you know, put that out there. I think that I'm all about transparency. Let the sun shine in. That's how you're going to find success, and that's what's going to happen here.
So by next board meeting is November 6th, I think. So, or 4th. By that time, I should know.
You should.
I will know by that,
and
I will make that announcement at the board meeting of who it is that's requesting this information, and let you know that they are doing this right before we are set to vote on these petitions. So they have a hidden agenda, but it's not hidden anymore because I will make it very public.
Right.
So
now, and we're not able to say right. I mean, maybe it's somebody else, but I can't imagine who else would care about that particular set of communications.
Yeah, between that office. So, but when I know, you will know. What I know, I will share.
And you'll know by next week when we do our before that.
Before the board meeting. There you go. You'll know.
Here,
you'll get the
between two teachers community will know, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So let me, and I will just remind you right here in the middle of it that we would appreciate it if you like and share and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. We're going to mention it a few times now just so that people know. The thing I did want to mention was Mr. Wald's presentation around the budget is, what is it? It's part 2 of the story. Part 2 of the story brings up 2 of his solutions to the $39 million of overspending. One part of the solution is to go into the OPEB Trust Fund and deplete it and use the cash in that fund. So this is like you have a checking account, you've overspent your checking account, or somebody who's your co-signer on, it's a joint account, you have a co-signer. Somebody on the account overspent it. And instead of going and really figuring all that out, what you're doing is going to the piggy bank. And the piggy bank was set up for a rainy day. Now this is a rainy day, but it's not the rainy day the piggy bank was set up for. The piggy bank was set up for to save, first of all, the trust fund piggy bank, right, which is a fund that the retirement funds, that the payment that's made for retirees' health care benefits, that we prepay them into this trust fund, and that allows us to get a discount. And if you go back to it, I'm going to post this here for anybody who's really interested, because there was a time in in December 2016, where in the Friday memo, all of the explanations for this were posted, along with a board resolution on why this was done. And Mr. Wold went very quickly past this and never really mentioned at all that there was a financial downside to this strategy of approaching the $39 million, right? So I think it's only fair to the board. Mr. Panis mentioned it, but he hadn't pulled up this page either. So if you're watching Mr. Panis, you can open the link, and it will tell you that the big thing in the presentation that we had then was that it did say that over time, the reason to do this was to look at this particular bill, which was an enormous bill we have to pay every year, and find a way to decrease our payments. And this is the way we found to do that. And so now that's going to be undermined if you pull all the money out of that. So that's one thing. The second thing is the idea of cutting down our reserves. And he mentioned that. But the thing about the reserves right now, especially with an unstable, volatile economy, is the reserves are the thing that keep you from going bankrupt. Right? There was a newspaper article within the last week that 2 of the cities in our district are among the top 10 most fiscally at-risk cities in the state of California, and that's El Cerrito and Richmond. And the reason that they are at risk is because of their low reserves. That will also be a consequence of how this West Contra Costa will be looked at if we spend down the reserves. And in doing that, the bond ratings will also go down because you will no longer be looked at as being fiscally responsible. I'm just saying that I don't think that was brought out in, this was brought out as a solution, but it wasn't really discussed in terms of the downsides of these strategies, without ever really saying where the overspending occurred. That's just totally missing.
Yeah, not really examining the ramifications of all these possibilities. So,
and I'm not, and I didn't see where that was going to happen, because it didn't sound like he thought it was. You know, the things that he was going to go forward and discuss were not about, you know, the consequences of taking the money from these 2 funds.
So what people can do is actually email this Dr. Wold and let him know this is the information we want to know, and what about ramifications. And so that really does help. They do read those, they listen, and
and you can go to these meetings. I mean, that's another thing. We can go to the meetings that he's going to hold.
Yes.
And move the conversation away from what he's talking about, and move it over to where did the overspending happen? Why did the overspending happen? What are the controls that are going to be in there to keep from overspending? And how have you figured out what the actual cost is to the district to spend down the reserves and to take the money out of OPEB?
Right. So that's one call to action you can do.
Yeah, that is a call to action.
For sure.
And another call, there are 2 more call to actions.
Oh, yes.
One is that when you mentioned with this making waves, and I will put a link to this in here as well as I've had it on our Facebook and our Twitter. And that is, there's a group called Wave Watch that has started a petition to get people to sign to go to the Pinole Planning Commission around the expansion of Making Waves to Pinole. And Making Waves is another charter school. It's a charter school that exists in the district, but it was authorized by the county, so it will probably go to the county. But before it goes to the county to be authorized, it has some hoops to jump through at the city level. And so Pinole Citizens Against Making Waves Charter Elementary School is the name of the change.org petition. And the other petition is for Oakland.
Ah, yes.
And that is, Oakland is not for sale. Stop Oakland school closures and consolidations. So if you agree that they should rethink both of those strategies, you can certainly sign that petition as well. So both those petitions The links are on the YouTube. I'm going to put the links as well again on Facebook, and I ask you to sign the petitions and share them out to your networks. And the last one is that there's two ballot measures that are being looked at.
Oh, that's right.
For
Competing,
funding.
supposedly. Yeah.
Funding. And one is called the Full and Fair Funding Measure that's been put on by being looked at by the California School Board Association, and the other one is Schools and Communities First, right? And both of them are being looked at for the 2020 election, and we don't believe there's any reason that they compete against each other. They just are two ways to grow the pot of funding for children and for communities. So these cities, Richmond and El Cerrito, obviously both need money. This would help fund both of them, or the schools and communities would, and full and fair funding would put all of its funding into education. But all of it is needed.
Exactly. And they're creating a narrative that's it's either or, and that we're going to have all of it. But really, we're trying to get the money from those people, the corporations and the people that have not been paying taxes, and so it doesn't affect, regular taxpayers, but rather,
Right.
Those people that need to pay their fair share.
Right. And
So-
everybody benefits from a stronger education system.
Absolutely.
So it's not as if that's not true. So both of these, we believe, deserve your support, and that I really don't see a reason why one should be against the other.
Exactly.
It really is not an either or, it's a
No.
both and.
Yes, correct.
That's what it is. So we're, Between Two Teachers is all in for full and fair funding and schools and community first.
Absolutely.
Uh,
There we
so-
go.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. Okay.
All right, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to ring the bell and ask you to like, share, and subscribe. And we have,
We're going to end on a light note. Our weekly little joke. Carlos, you want to come over here and sit down and tell your joke? Or you just want to tell it from there?
I've made enough room. I'll be right there.
Okay.
here he is.
Thanks.
Oh, you're going to, all right.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. What's the joke?
Why did the student eat his homework?
Why?
Because his teachers said it was a piece of cake.
Very cute, very cute.
I'll ring the bell.
The bell of approval.
Bell of approval. The bell, school's out. When you ring the bell.
That was really corny. We need a better quality jokes here.
Well,
We'll
it's a working process.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
work
it's
in
like
progress.
everything
We'll get
else.
better.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
See you next week.